Hey, this is Tim with S&B, and today I want to show you how to install a 40-gallon fuel tank on your Winnebago REVEL. One thing that we should mention, with your fuel tank, you'll get this card with a QR code. If you scan that, you'll get the most up-to-date installation instructions for your fuel tank. With that said, let's dig in. To start, we're going to take off the 4 Torx T30 bolts here within the filler area. Open your door, come in here, and you'll see all 4 of these. Again, this is a T30 Torx bit. To remove the panel, there are a couple tricks. You can see that it is stuck behind the door right back here. So close the door partially. There it is. And once it's closed partially, you can slide it in front of the hinge and it comes out just like that. You can remove the cap now to fully remove the piece. Next, there is one more Torx T30 bolt right here you'll need to remove. And be careful, once it is loose, you don't want to drop it down your filler neck, and you don't want to drop it down onto the ground into the abyss. Next, you're free to close the door, lift the van. This install can also be done on the ground, but of course it makes it easier to have a lift. Next, we're underneath the van. Here towards the front, you can see the filler neck coming down. There is a styrofoam piece that needs to be removed. It does have a small slit that you can try to move over the fill pipe. That slit's going to be facing towards the front of the van. Sometimes the pieces do break. This won't be an issue. Now that we have our styrofoam piece removed, we can disconnect the grounding cable right here. It's just a spade connector, easy to disconnect. This is going to come down with the entire filler neck. This stays attached to the van. And next up, we can disconnect our 3 fuel lines, 3 because this van does have a diesel heater, as most REVELs will. To disconnect, you'll spread the 2 wings on the side slightly and move downwards. Again, it's the 2 wings on the side you'll spread and pull backwards. Then you can depress the white piece here and pull down. Our diesel heater is disconnected. Now we can move on to the engine connections here, and it's the same concept. You'll spread the 2 legs on the side slightly, push down on the top. Make sure the clip is all the way down, and you can pull it apart. And finally, one more line here. And pull apart. And the last thing to watch out for is the harness itself for the tank. You'll see it is zip tied here to the fuel line. Take your diagonal cutters and remove the zip tie. To remove the plug connection, you'll depress this end of it right here towards the wiring and pull back. Now all the connections are off of the tank. It's time to support the tank and remove the straps. As mentioned, next we're going to remove the straps. The bolts Mercedes uses are external Torx, but an 11mm 6-point socket will work as well. If your tank is empty, this should be a pretty easy process. However, this tank is pretty full, so I'm going to have a friend help in lowering it. Right now, I'm just going to break the bolts loose, then I'll get the jack underneath to support it, and we'll slowly lower it. All right, all 6 of our bolts are broken loose. We're going to support it with our jack now and slowly and safely lower the tank. As far as where to support the tank while lowering it, you'll want to avoid the area right here where the factory sending unit is, as we are going to be reusing the factory sending unit. Anywhere back from here towards the center would be a safe bet. Now we're ready to drop the tank. All the straps have been removed. With this tank drop, the entire filler neck is coming down with the tank, so make sure that you can have eyes on that and guide it down with the rest of the tank assembly. Now we have our box open. You can see what we're looking at, the tank itself, obviously here. We also have our straps. And inside your white parts box here, you'll find the rollover valve, which is going to connect to the T right there. The check valve, which is going to go inside of the filler neck itself. And a new sending unit O-ring, which is going to go right in there. Now I'm going to detach the lines from the stock tank. I'm not going to pull them off of the sending unit itself, but you can see that they are clipped in here. I can start with the electrical harness. And next to that, the lines going to the engine. And we won't need these clips anymore anyway. And finally, the auxiliary heater. Next up, we're going to remove the lock ring for the sending unit. You can do this with a pry bar and hammer, twisting counterclockwise. However, there's also a specialty tool made for the lock ring removal. As you can see, the tool sits down inside of the grooves, and it takes a little bit of force to get it removed, but just going counterclockwise, it will remove. With the lock ring removed, it's time to remove the sending unit. We'll prepare the new tank by removing the cover. And you can also get your new sending unit O-ring ready to install. I'll carefully lift out the sending unit. And we're going to try to remove as much fuel as we can from the bucket here so that it doesn't spill. And we'll also be careful of our float arm right here. This is what senses the fuel level. You can see this tube trailing behind. That is the Venturi tube. Now we can transfer to the new tank. This Venturi tube Make sure that it is sitting parallel with the tank. Sometimes it will get caught on this groove right here and obstruct the fuel level float. A quick audible check for that Venturi tube is to twist the sending unit itself and make sure that you can hear it hitting on the side over here. If you twist it and you don't hear anything, chances are that tube may be bound up right here on this ridge and it will obstruct the fuel level float. I can hear it back here, but we'll also do a visual check before we install the tank to make sure it's where it needs to be. From here, there is a tab on the fuel sending unit, and that will line up with the arrow on your tank. Now we can push down on the sending unit and start our fuel lock ring. And once you make sure that all of the teeth of your S&B tank are on top of the lock ring itself, you can insert your tool and tighten the lock ring. As you can see, all the teeth are all the way against the stops on the lock ring, so the sending unit install is complete. Now it's time to reroute our lines. As mentioned, we do want to do a visual check of that Venturi tube, so we're going to remove the main vent here. It's 5 4mm Allen screws. Now that all 5 screws are off, we'll want to blow off any debris so that it doesn't fall into the tank. And we can remove the valve and begin our visual check. And as you can see, the Venturi tube is against the side of the tank, as it should be, and the fuel level sender is free to float up and down as it's designed to. Finished our visual check, we can reinstall the main vent and make sure that the orientation stays the same as when it arrived. And we'll finish snapping in our lines. It'll be the same configuration as the OE. So the auxiliary heater will snap in closest to the center of the tank right here. And then your engine lines next to that. And we have our wiring harness snapped in here on the side. Now we're going to remove the main vent hose. This will be reused, the vent itself will not, and it's going to go onto the S&B vent. To remove, grab and twist. It unsnaps from the factory tank, and we can transfer it to the S&B tank. Make sure it's all the way on and against the neck. And there we go. Next up will be the fuel fill neck. For the fuel fill neck, we'll remove the clamp down here. You can use either a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, or a 5/16 socket. Since it is facing down, we'll utilize the socket. And although our tank is filled with fuel, there is a factory check valve built into the tank, So the only fuel that will spill out will be any residual here in the filler neck itself. We did try to get the majority of fuel out of this filler neck already. You can see we did make a small mess on the ground. So hopefully no more comes out. We have our clamp loosened and we're ready to remove the neck. All right. And with the filler neck off, we can now install the check valve, which will be in your parts kit here. And as a reminder, there is a directional flow marking on here to show exactly which way this will install. The check valve slides right into the factory filler tube. And once it's pressed on to the S&B tank, it will help to push it up into the tube itself. The S&B tank does have the shipping cap over the filler area. We did have some leftover fuel in the filler neck, as you can see. So what I did was actually just take it and dump back into the factory tank, which we'll siphon out of and fill our new tank with. So now that the filler neck is empty, we can more easily install it on our S&B tank. With the check valve inside of the filler neck, make sure that you don't push on the center of the check valve. There is a chance that it could break. This one was a little tough to get inserted, so what we did was use the spout on the S&B tank to help push the check valve into the fill neck. And once you can feel that it's up and over the lip, you can begin tightening the hose clamp. You'll want to have the filler neck about horizontal with this section, parallel to the ground. Don't tighten it all the way. We'll finish tightening it once it's installed in the van. And finally, before we get this tank moving up towards the van, we'll install our rollover valve here. You can see it's going to connect to this T. There's no need for clamps on this. Just make sure that it's on all of the barbs. We'll go ahead and zip tie the main section of line here over to our factory vent valve. And we'll continue down here with one more, and then we can zip tie to the fill neck. Now we should be ready to put this tank under the van and get our connections made. Now that we have it under the van, we're going to make sure that our fill neck is aligned with our hole. And lift it into place. The tank is about 4 inches away from the frame now, so I'm going to go ahead and make our fuel connections. I can start with our small auxiliary diesel heater connection here. It pushes in, you could hear the audible click. Now I'm going to push down on that top blue clip to lock it in. Now we have our engine fuel connections here. Once it's on, give it a pull to make sure it's on. As you can see, it was not. All right, we got an audible click from our white connector here. We can push to lock. And our final connection here. There's that audible click. We'll push to lock. And finally our electrical. And just like that, it was quiet, but I could get an audible click from this as well. You can also pull on the connector to ensure that it is snapped in. Now that all of our connections are made, it's time to put the straps in. Your S&B kit will include 3 new straps. The longer strap will go up towards the front of the tank, and the other 2 straps will go in the mid and back of the tank. I'll finish lifting the tank into position, minding the filler neck. And we'll double check that our straps line up. I can start with our front strap here. That's going to be the bigger of the 3. And it looks good. I'm going to go ahead and grab the bolts and get these started. Now that I have the front and back straps started about halfway down on the threads, I'll remove our jack and install our final middle strap. The tank may require some movement to get the straps aligned, but they will align. Now finally, we have our filler neck up here. The tank is mounted and secured. Let's go ahead and tighten this clamp the rest of the way. I would advise using a flathead over a ratchet style because worm gear clamps are able to get stripped. You don't want to strip these. There we go. We have our ground connection that needs to be made. There we go, the spade terminal is plugged back in. Now, since we did add this vent tube up here, our rollover valve, we will need to cut out a small piece of the styrofoam itself. It won't be much, it's only a 5/16 line. Something like that or slightly bigger should be plenty. Now let's get the foam piece reinstalled. And we'll get the ground wire fed through the hole as well. And there we go, we're done under the van. Let's go ahead and lower it and re-secure our plate at the fill neck. Now that we're back up top, we can re-secure our fill neck with a T30 screw. Again, be careful that the screw does not drop down the filler neck. And finally, time to replace our bezel. We'll open the door. Feed our cap through. Oh, never mind. And we'll try to get this plastic edge behind the door. All right, and as you can see, the plastic edge is behind our door, and we can install all 4 of our remaining T30 bolts, replace our cap, and the install will be complete. So that's it. We filled the tank with diesel. The van is all set to go. That should be all that you need for your fuel tank installation on your 2020 Plus Winnebago Revel. As a reminder, this 40-gallon tank will fit many other models of Mercedes Sprinter chassis. If you have any doubt, give us a call and we would be happy to help.